Well, before I start on dinner, I'm going to go ahead and spray a little degreaser on there. And the time has come today, as the Chambers brothers said. And we're going to clean this up. And we're going to... This thing's in really good shape. So I don't know how much I talked about this, but it's a quick way. This is the valve grinder. Obviously, you do that here. You set the angles down here. You can see your degree marks down here. There's marks on here. I see 45. I'm sure as we clean it up, we'll see stuff. But we also want to double check those things because this is an older machine, but it looks like it was very well taken care of. This looks like all of its original paint. And most of it is actually still paint. It's got some scrapes, but a lot of this is just grease and grime. So somebody definitely used it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and clean her up. And then I'm going to need some help getting this thing in the basement where I want to put it. And then from there, we can start kind of practicing. I mean, so I'm gonna, this is the before. We're gonna see what it looks like. I got the AC literally blowing right on me. It's actually cooled off. When I came out here, it was 90. It's 81 degrees in here with the AC. But I found out that I can't run that furnace fan and that unit. Apparently, they're on the same. The wiring in this garage is kind of goofy. But anyway, we're gonna get to this, and then I'm gonna wash my hands and go work on dinner, and then we'll get back to this later. This is a good beer project right here. And I'm sure I'm getting buzzed off the fumes alone, but this thing is actually cleaning up really nice. Yes, definitely it's original paint. But I've already realized a couple of things. We got a couple of oilers here and here. And in the instruction booklet, it goes over, this is just the base cleaning for now, but we got 15, 30, and 45. And those are our valve angles, and you got 0 down here. So that's where we want to cut that stuff at. I need to make a positive stop for this because if this comes out, what happens is it's really hard to get it back in there. I struggled a little bit. Even though technically I could loosen that up, and I don't want to get into any of that. Some of the paint did start coming off. Obviously this paint's really old and it's the original paint. There isn't multiple layers in there, but this is really cool, man. Like, I'm excited. Obviously, I don't know how much I went into detail last time, but this is the seat grinding equipment. Once it's all laid out, it's going to look nice, and there's actually instructions with it, which is really, really cool. Again, this is just, I mean, they used to just sell this stuff to local mechanic shops, and they used to just do valve jobs in-house. So, the only thing we can't do is actual guides. We can do liners, but there's a lot we can do here. So, I got a little bit of off time. We are planning on doing the 427 heads. If my machinist is up for it, it's at his leisure. But we're going to get going on this. So I got to get this all functioning and operational so that we can start doing cool stuff. We're going to start doing valve jobs. And hopefully it'll be good. We also can tip the valves here. Obviously you don't want to tip them on an angle, but there is a gauge there. And then, we got plenty of stuff for this thing, man. It's actually quite impressive, but we'll check on the next installment here as we get going. Alright guys, it's Copper Cutlass, and this turned into a shit show. Everything did work. All the electronics worked. So after some movement, the motor managed to arc out. Of course, it's brittle old wire. And JJ, this is the point where you ask Jen if this type of motor can just be rewired. It's a low RPM. It's a 1050 RPM motor. If not, then we're going to have to find something to retrofit onto here, because that motor turns this belt. But it has to have enough torque to turn all of this, which this is pretty heavy. So obviously everything works good. It's got all these little oilers, and you can see I got my little hand oil pump down there. So all these little oilers for the slides and everything. Everything moves good. But this is actually the first time I spent any real time seeing if anything worked. So I got the cover off of here. I lubed everything up. I cleaned it all up. I put like a gallon or so of transmission fluid. You can see we got some here. And so of course, me being me, I'm like, there's a clog in the system. And there was. But the problem with the clog in the system is that all the gaskets and anything that seals up is also brittle. So I hit it a little too hard with the compressed air, and I think I blew the seal out, which is why I have this down here, just to kind of act as a diaper. But I think it stopped leaking. But it has to still come apart. And now the funny part is that the fluid level is still dropping, so there's a clog somewhere. So I kind of have to easily work on this. I have to kind of take the motor assembly out, which means I got to do a couple of things. At the back, we have the grinder that tips the valves, and in the front, we have our main stone that cuts the angle into the valve. And out here, you got 15, 30, and 45. So what I essentially have to do is get all this shit out, pull the hose out so I can slide the motor off of the slide. It's got V-type sliders on it that are replaceable. I doubt they're serviceable at this point because they're probably obsolete unless somebody like Goodson sells it. But my one solution to the pump scenario, because there is the pump cavity in there is also submerged. So my one solution to that is to find a pump that will work with oil and just externally mount it and use the drain plugs that are on the side as fluid passages. And just keep the pump external. If anything goes wrong, I no longer have to lift this bulky ass fucking thing. Because the oil pump for this, you know, this is the oiler here. The oil pump for this isn't working. And of course the motor went out. And that's not a big deal. Like, this stuff is actually fairly simple, just built like an absolute shitbrick. It is heavy cast iron. But everything works. The motor works good. You know, the light even works. You know, it's a 75 watt Westinghouse bulb, which what I can only guess is like a really old logo on there. I can't make it out, but almost looks like the Michelin Man. But I even oiled it's got an oiler for the rear bearing on the motor. It's got an oiler for these slides on both sides. Oiled that up. You know, right now I got this locked in, but all of this moves really good. I did mess with the stone dresser, but again, it doesn't see enough fluid. So a lot of those, but again, this is why it's also important when you're dressing like stone. So I used to work in a machine shop. When you don't get enough oil, you get all the grit buildup that stays in there because it doesn't, like, the oil kind of balls it up and you just kind of clean it off. But yeah, everything is pretty good. It moves. It needs a little bit of work, but again, you dive into something and you just create more fucking problems. Yes, it's simple enough, but I kind of started on this late in the day, which kind of pisses me off because tomorrow I got to work on the house. It's supposed to be like 15 degrees cooler tomorrow, so I have to take advantage of it. But instead, no, I decided to kill my back and lean over this fucking thing for like 3 hours, story of my life. But the idea is to start doing valve jobs. And I'm going to end up keeping it in the garage because it's a little messier than I thought. But what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to clear that bench out right there. It's going to sit there. And then our seat grinder is probably going to be somewhere in the other area. But we're going to set up like plexiglass things to keep shit from flying everywhere because this is going to be a messy deal. And from working for years with my cylinder head guy, Dave Meyer, Freak Cylinder Head Service, he had stuff like this that he worked with, but he always did great valve jobs. There goes the bleeder for the air compressor. At least the air compressor didn't go out. But yeah, so we got a little bit of work. You know, the belts are actually in fairly good shape. They're old school, but needs a little bit of work. But everything does move, work. It does oil. It just doesn't oil enough, I think. And the pump is actually mechanical. So there is no need to add another electronic. It's just a matter of finding where the crack. I think the hose has a crack in it because when I move this to a certain position, which this is almost impossible, like you just kind of set this for your depth, and then you kind of move this into, you know, work your valve in and out, whatever. Um, yeah, so whatever the case is, I hit a certain point and it stops sucking in fluid. And it took a really long time for the fluid to mix up with whatever was left in the oil pump cavity. It started out cherry red, now it looks like a murky turd diarrhea brown, and the level is dropping. I filled it up to that level where there's no paint in there, and it's starting to drop, but it's also leaking out from the pump cavity. So again, there's some idiosyncrasies here working, and this is actually kind of fun. Something that I have never done before is rebuild an old machine, but this is really, really basic. Like, there's no instructions to rebuild this. In the instruction manual, there's none of it. I know in the earlier parts of this video, I probably talked about it, was really excited and sounded excited, and I was excited, until I'm over here trying to siphon fucking 50-year-old oil. God knows what I fucking put in my mouth. Gross. Can't be any worse than diesel. But again, this thing is actually really cool. Everything moves, everything works, and it's got its original paint. Just needs a little bit of more TLC, which right now at the moment isn't working out for me because I got other shit to do. So we're gonna curb this project, and tomorrow I'm gonna find a way to drain this without killing myself, because I have to fucking somehow expose the pump, find something that's sturdy enough that won't kill me, so I can work underneath it, because this thing weighs like easily like fucking 500 pounds. It's heavier than fuck. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is something different, and it's going to lead us to do valve jobs in here, and we'll start learning together, because I've never done this. So see how it goes.